There are some things that makes absolute zero sense in GTA, but you probably never noticed. Michael's age, for example. Here's the deal. Trevor, that lovable psycho, drops a line about Michael being 45. Cool, we can roll with that. But then you goes to the cemetery one day, and bam! There's Michael's fake tombstone saying he was born in 65. Do the math, and that makes him 48 in 2013 when the game's going down. What gives, Rockstar? Now, I'm not saying this is gonna keep me up at night or anything, but it's kind of funny when you think about it. Maybe Michael's been lying about his age. I mean, the guy's all about that midlife crisis vibe. So maybe he's shaving a few years off when he's chatting with Trevor. Or hell, maybe Trevor's just too wasted to remember how old his buddy is. But here's where it gets kinda interesting. What if Rockstar did this on purpose? Like, they're messing with us, making us question everything in the game. It's Los Santos after all. Nothing straightforward in that city. Or maybe, and stick with me here, it's all part of Michael's fake death setup. Yeah, I know it sounds a bit out there, but hear me out. If you're gonna fake your death, why not fudge the numbers a bit? Throw off anyone who might be digging too deep, you know? At the end of the day, does it really matter if Michael's 45 or 48? Nah, not really. Next, it's impossible to follow that damn train. Hear me out. So here's how it goes down. Big Smoke calls CJ up and says he's got some Vagos to deal with. Cool. Normal day in the hood, right? You hop on a bike with Big Smoke and he tells you to chase down a train. Apparently, there are some Vagos on top of it, and Big Smoke needs to take them out. You're cruising alongside this train on a dirt bike, trying to keep pace while Big Smoke attempts to channel his inner marksman. Meanwhile, these Vagos dudes are just chilling on top of the train, shooting back at you like it's a casual Sunday picnic or something. The train's blazing through Los Santos, under bridges, past buildings, the whole 9 yards. You're supposed to keep close enough for Big Smoke to pop these guys, but not so close that you're eating train for breakfast. It's a whole balancing act, and half the time, Big Smoke's aim is worse than a stormtrooper's. If you manage to not rage quit and actually complete the mission, the train eventually stops at some point, and any surviving Vagos jump off. Mission accomplished. Cue Big Smoke saying something about being a success, and you're done. There's some fishy things to consider. 1. The vanishing bridge. Alright, so the biggest head-scratcher here is the bridge situation. In the normal San Andreas map, there's a broken bridge that stops the train line dead. But in this mission, that bridge might as well be invisible. The train just keeps on chugging like it's got somewhere to be. Where's it going? Train heaven? The Twilight Zone? Who knows? 2. The magical second train. Just when you think you've got a handle on this crazy train situation, the game throws another curveball. A second train shows up out of nowhere. It's like the rail system in Los Santos runs on video game logic instead of, actual train schedules. Where did this train come from? Is there a secret underground train factory we don't know about? Also, the never-ending track. So, assuming we ignore the broken bridge, where exactly is this train headed? The track in San Andreas isn't exactly a cross-country route. It does a loop around the city, and that's it. But this mission feels like it goes on forever. Are we secretly traveling to Vice City or something? When you step back and look at it, this mission is like a perfect storm of video game logic, wacky physics, and straight-up plot holes. But you know what? It's become legendary because of all this craziness. It's so bad it's good, you know? So next time you're playing San Andreas and you hear those infamous words, all you had to do was follow the damn train, CJ. Just remember, you're not just following a train, you're diving headfirst into one of gaming's most beautifully flawed missions. Next, why did Trevor never try to save Brad? First off, let's talk about who Trevor is. This dude is like a rabid dog when it comes to loyalty. He's the kind of guy who'd punch a shark if it looked at his friend. Funny. We see this all through the game. He keeps Michael's cut from the big score for 10 years, not touching a cent. He goes on a rampage when he thinks Michael's been killed by the Chinese. He even sticks by Wade, who's, well, Wade. So, yeah, Trevor's all about that ride or die life. He's volatile as hell, but when it comes to his crew, he's all in. Now, let's talk about Brad. After the botched heist in North Yankton, Trevor thinks Brad's locked up in the clink. He's getting letters from Brad for years, keeping in touch with his old buddy. But here's the kicker. Trevor never tries to break Brad out. Not once. Nada. Zilch. And this is where things start to make about as much sense as finding a sober person at the Vanilla Unicorn. See, Trevor's all about action. This is a guy who solves problems by blowing stuff up or shooting it. The idea that he'd just sit on his hands while his buddy rots in jail? That's just weird. Plus, Trevor's ex-military, runs a smuggling operation, and can fly pretty much anything. Breaking someone out of prison should be like a fun Tuesday afternoon for him. And let's not forget, Trevor wipes his ass with the law on a daily basis. The idea that he'd suddenly play it safe when it comes to Brad is about as believable as Los Santos having good traffic. By the time we meet Trevor in GTA 5, he's got a whole operation going. He's got guns, he's got manpower, kind of. He's got planes. He's not some broke nobody who can't do anything. And we all know Trevor takes everything personally. The idea that he'd let his anger simmer for years without doing anything? That's not the Trevor we know, and, well, love might be a strong word, but you get the idea. Now, I know what you're thinking. Maybe there's an explanation for all this. Like, maybe Trevor did try to save Brad off-screen and we just never hear about it. Or maybe the letters from Brad were enough to keep Trevor from going full Trevor. You could argue that as long as he thought Brad was okay, he didn't feel the need to go crazy. But again, that doesn't really fit with Trevor's act first, think never personality. Some people might say Trevor was laying low after the North Yankton job. But for 10 years? And since when does Trevor care about laying low? Others might point out that Trevor didn't know which prison Brad was in. But come on, this is Trevor. He'd tear the country apart prison by prison if he had to. If you really want to stretch it, you could say that deep down, Trevor suspected something was off and didn't want to face it. But that's giving Trevor a level of self-awareness that he doesn't usually show. It's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. It just doesn't work. When you really break it down, Trevor not trying to save Brad is about as logical as using a golf cart in a street race. It just doesn't add up with everything else we know about the character. It feels like the writers needed a way to keep Trevor in the dark about what really happened in North Yankton, and this was the best they could come up with. Now the Madrazo angle seems fishy too. So picture this. Michael deSanta, the guy who robbed banks for a living and faked his own death, is suddenly playing errand boy for Martin Madrazo. And not just for a hot minute, but for a good chunk of the game. It's like watching a lion being bossed around by a chihuahua. Something just doesn't add up. Let's start with the basics. Michael first crosses paths with Madrazo when he pulls down the deck of Madrazo's girlfriend's house. Okay, fair enough. He messed up. And Madrazo's pissed. Madrazo comes off as this big scary crime lord, and Michael's trying to keep a low profile. So far, so good, right? But here's where it starts to get as wonky as the physics in a GTA Online session. Michael keeps doing Madrazo's bidding long after he should have any reason to be afraid of him. Let's break down why this makes about as much sense as using a Faggio in a getaway. First off, Michael's no pushover. This is a guy who's been in the crime game for decades. He's pulled off scores that would make most criminals wet their pants. He's got connections with the FIB, for crying out loud. The idea that he'd be genuinely scared of Madrazo for more than 5 minutes is like thinking the Maze Bank Tower is just a really tall porta-potty. Then there's Trevor. Once Trevor shows up, any reason for Michael to play nice with Madrazo goes out the window faster than a cop car in a chase scene. Trevor's about as subtle as a rhinoceros in a china shop, and he's got Michael's back. Between the two of them, they could probably take down half of Los Santos before lunch. Let's not forget Michael's FIB connections. He's got Dave Norton on speed dial, and he's doing jobs for Steve Haynes. You're telling me a guy with that kind of government backing is worried about a local crime lord? That's like being afraid of a water pistol when you're wearing full body armor. And it's not like Michael's trying to stay under the radar. By the middle of the game, he's pulling off heists left and right, causing mayhem all over the city. He's about as low profile as a neon sign in a blackout. So why is he still playing fetch for Madrazo? Now you might be thinking, maybe Michael's just being cautious. But come on, this is GTA. Caution is something you throw to the wind along with traffic laws and basic human decency. Michael's the kind of guy who'd rob a jewelry store in broad daylight. But we're supposed to believe he's tiptoeing around Madrazo? Here's another thing. Michael's got money. After the first couple of heists, he's not exactly hurting for cash. He could easily pay off whatever he owes Madrazo and tell him to take a long walk off a short pier. But nope, he keeps running errands like he's some minimum wage employee afraid of getting fired. The whole thing reeks of plot convenience more than Trevor's trailer on a hot day. It feels like the writers needed a way to keep Michael involved in more criminal activities, and Madrazo was the stick they used to prod him along. But it's about as believable as finding a quiet, law-abiding citizen in Los Santos. If you really wanted to stretch it, you could argue that Michael's playing some long con, trying to get close to Madrazo for some bigger score. But that theory holds about as much water as a sieve. We never see any payoff for all this kowtowing to Madrazo. Next, Catalinas Relationship. First off, let's recap who we're dealing with here. We've got Catalina, the poster child for don't stick your joystick in crazy. This lady's got more screws loose than a dollar store furniture set. Then there's CJ, our boy from Grove Street who goes from rags to riches faster than you can say, "Ah shit, here we go again." And finally, we've got Claude, the strong, silent type. And by silent, I mean literally doesn't say a word. By the end of San Andreas, CJ's sitting pretty. He's gone from a nobody in Grove Street to a millionaire mob boss with more territory than a Monopoly champion. He's got properties all over San Andreas, a successful garage business, and more respect than a GTA Online modder. You'd think he'd be quite the catch, right? Enter Catalina. Now, this woman is crazier than a caffeinated squirrel and more obsessed with money than a Wall Street broker on cocaine. You'd think CJ would be her dream guy. Rich? Check. Powerful? Check. Willing to put up with her crazy? Somehow. Check. It's a match made in whatever passes for heaven in the GTA universe. But nope. Catalina takes one look at Claude, a guy who's about as talkative as a mime with laryngitis, and decides he's the one for her. Now don't get me wrong, Claude's got his charms. He's a skilled wheelman and can rock a leather jacket like nobody's business. But compared to CJ, it's like choosing a Blista Compact over a Infernus. Crazy part. She sticks with Claude for 9 years. 9 years. That's longer than most GTA players can go without causing a 5-star wanted level. We're talking about Catalina here, a woman who changes moods faster than a traffic light. The idea of her being in a stable relationship for 9 years is about as believable as finding a law-abiding citizen in Los Santos. So what gives? Why would Catalina, the money-hungry psycho, dump a millionaire kingpin for a mechanic? It makes about as much sense as trying to outrun a jet on a bicycle. Maybe Catalina's playing the long con. She figures Claude's the easier mark, the guy she can manipulate into doing her bidding. But 9 years is a hell of a long con. By that point, she could have probably manipulated half of Liberty City. Or maybe she's got a thing for the silent type. CJ's always running his mouth, but Claude? He's as quiet as a stealth chopper. For someone as loud as Catalina, maybe that's appealing. It's the old opposites attract thing, taken to GTA extremes. Here's a wild thought. What if Catalina's not as money-hungry as we think? Maybe deep down, she's looking for a partner in crime, not just a sugar daddy. Claude might not be rich, but he's definitely down for whatever crazy scheme she cooks up. It's like they say, the couple that crimes together, stays together. Or maybe, just maybe, this is the GTA universe's way of showing us that love, or whatever passes for it in this crazy world, is as unpredictable as the physics engine in GTA 4. And we are done. Let me know what other GTA stuff doesn't make sense to you. I might cover them in other video. Subscribe to the channel till I drop the next video. See ya.